So today, first of all, we have over in the other room a Oculus hooked up to the computer in there, and I just want to show you really quickly how to go through different mirror modes on the Oculus, just for people who are using that in Unreal in the future. And we have another teaser of some of the work that Anderson has been doing today. But we're going to hit play on this. We know that, so we talked about how there's a VR straight out of the editor. Okay, so the Oculus, this is a torus that's well, it's a tunnel of light that we're going through. And I'm going to press a button so that we can get rid of the health and safety warnings. Okay, so if we wanted to actually, we could change this so it's not distorted. And so if you guys might want to show what people are seeing inside your Oculus, but you want to show this here as well on another screen, we have different mirror modes. And to bring up your console, you hit tilde, and it brings up a little window. And then we're going to say HMD mirror mode 1. And it should work. So now what this is doing is this is showing both eyes, but it's undistorted. This is just a good way of like viewing things in a different way. And there's other mirror modes, and you can change the kind of the resolution on them as well. Just search for HMD mirror modes. And I just wanted to show this really quick because it took me a little while to find out how to even bring up the console on the Oculus. So HMD mirror mode 2 will be kind of a distorted one. It'll be one single view. And from here, you can make this full screen and mirror this out and project this out. So this is for the Oculus people. This is a way of accessing your video. I just want to show that really quickly while I have it there. If anyone wants to go take a ride, it's in there, playing around. Yeah. The image of the Oculus is unchanged, even while switching between them. It's fine. Yeah, exactly. So this is just for future use for Unreal and VR in the future. It'll be playing in there because I can't do anything about it. Yay! All right, so I'm going to just go over the process of doing some more animation blueprints. We haven't really done that much. We've just been doing the streaming in animation blueprints, and we haven't actually talked about blending different animations, how to do keyframed or prescribed animations, and how to blend those into a live performance. Let's say you have different facial poses you want to use, or I know definitely we want to have specific hand movements we want to use. The tracking on this system isn't great on the hands. This is kind of like the last thing that I need to show you guys because I'm like the one person who knows how to do all this stuff, and I want it to be recorded so everyone else knows it. Even if you're not using it, this like completes everything I know for using mocap and doing a live performance when it comes to the actual taking care of the mocap data. So I'm just going to create a blank project with no starter content. I don't really care about anything, and this will be called Anim Test. And I'm going to go to my Mixamo channel, and I'm going to cheat instead of doing hand animations myself, which we're still in the process of figuring out. I'm just going to download characters that already have animations. So I'm going to go to my store, and I'm going to find my characters, my assets, my characters, and I have a decimated Hillary Clinton. I'm going to go for the female bet. Okay, here we go, we're going to queue that download. T-pose, FBX, that is fine. And then it's going to come with an animation pack too, or I've already done that. So I'm just going to download these two and I'll import that process. I mean, I'm sure you guys have done this a million times, but it's all fun. Great. All right, so we're going to import the female base mesh first. Well, I'll drag it in apparently. Great. So it is importing its skeleton. We're bringing in the mesh as well, so we'll bring in everything there. And I'm going to save. We're going to downloads, free test pack. And then I'm going to bring in all the other stuff. And I'm going to apply it. Yeah.
Are those all from Messenger?
Yeah, that's a free test pack. It doesn't take away your credits.
Will it work if it's from like a recorded?
The finger stuff? It should.
Finger and
Yeah, it should. As long as it's the same skeleton. Yeah. So I selected that I'm gonna bring in these animations onto that skeleton. And so now we have all these things here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to now create an animation blueprint with this skeleton, and I'm going to load in all these animations, and we're going to learn how to blend between animations and kind of like morph and kind of make transitions, crossfade, I guess I should say. So I'm going to save this, make an animation blueprint, and it's going to include that female base mesh skeleton, and it's ABP female base mesh. There we go. So normally, over here, all we've done is just find the mocap streaming data. I don't even have Ikinema installed on this right now. I'm not even doing Ikinema. This is on top of Ikinema or beside of Ikinema. What we're going to do today is if I go to those animation tabs, we have all these animations, and these are exposed and available to this graph, and we're going to start loading them in, and we're going to do what's called a state machine. Those who've done Unity might have done state machines. That also has that capabilities. And in a video game, that would be like you do different states when you're doing different actions. You have a jumping state, you have a whatever, and it comes with this graph of things you can do. But since we're basically going from a live mocap performance to a one-off animation, it's a little bit different. It's just like a neutral state, which is we're going to call a conduit, that we can get to any other state from that one state. There's not that much logic dictating this. We just want everything exposed all the time. So it ends up being a little easier. Right click, and I'm going to say state machine. Add a state machine. And I am going to double click on that, and it brings me into the world of the state machine. So I have to start off in some place, and so we're going to start off in an idle pose. So I'm going to place a new node, and I'm going to add a state. And this state I'm going to call idle. So what I want to do is I called it idle, but it doesn't know that I have an animation called idle. So I want to associate this node with that idle. And to go further into the inception, we're going to double click on idle. And then if I right click in the space, if I type in idle, it's going to actually give me that animation. So I typed in idle because I knew that was what it was called. I can go over here and I can find the name of my different animations. I have idle and jump and left strafe. And in here, I can call it up by searching for it with context sensitive. Sorry, idle. And now that is my default state. And if I went back to here and I connected to the final pose, which is like this is the final thing, final out, it's now idle. I could have just as easily, if I wasn't going to switch between anything else, I could have just brought in the animation here at the top level, but I'm building a state machine, so I'm in here. So from a default base position, and when you're doing it with mocap data, you're actually going to be, your idle is actually going to be your mocap stream, and I'll show you guys how to do that when you get to it. I'm now going to go to what's called a conduit. Uh, for those of you who have heard me mention A. Thomas Goldberg, he's the one who taught me Unreal. This is his contribution. He invented the conduit. And it's just a thing so you can go to all states using mocap live performance. So let's bring in the other animations. All right. So just like we brought in idle, I'm going to add in a new state. And I know that I have a samba dance. So I'm going to right click and hook up samba. Play samba dancing. So this is another state I can go to. And I'm just going to hook up a few of these so that we have some stuff to play with. And you can see I'm navigating either through this little hierarchy here, or I have a bunch of little tabs that I can switch between. And I can also give these things more meaningful names. Like right now I'm just inside a new state machine, I can give it another name. So these are little nodes I could drag around to create more space if I need to. And I'm just pulling off of conduit, letting go, and saying I want to add a state. And so this one can be uppercut, because I know there's an uppercut. I'm just going to go in there, and I'm going to bring an uppercut. I'm going to add in like 2 more. Fantastic. What's another one that's all the kids are using these days? Oh, they have the skinning test. Look. There we go. So I'll add in a little skin. There we go. And just to make it more fun, one more. Gangnam Style. Getting a little lost. And I'm going to add that in. All right, so these are just full animations that we can switch between, but we need to set up rules for how these guys can be switched. We need to create a variable that can hold a bunch of different names, and when we call that variable, it allows us permission to get in here. You see these little circles here? These say that they're idle to conduit. This is conduit to samba. These are our transitions. And right now, if we open it up, it just says it can be entered. But we need to make up a rule for how it can be entered. So I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to create it in the content browser. I'm going to make what's called an enumeration. And it's a variable that has a list of words. And I'm going to associate those words with these animations. So inside here, I am going to look for probably user interface. No. Miscellaneous. Maybe probably animations. Maybe I dreamed it up. There we go. Enumeration. Let's go ahead and dock this. Enumeration. So I'm basically going to be calling this is going to be my variable name. So this is selector. And inside this, I'm just going to give it some names. And I want them to be meaningful to me. So I'm going to use the same names that I used in the animation blueprint. And I'm just creating a variable that has text, that holds different text states. So we have skin, we have uppercut, we have, yeah? Sure. This is the enumerator. It was I didn't really say it as I was doing it. It's under blueprints. I right clicked in the content browser, blueprints, and there's an enumeration, and it's just a way of storing data, or it's giving names. This is how I'm switching between. I'm going to basically associate each name with an animation and say you can transition when this name equals that animation. Is where we'll get to in a second. So this is, we have Samba, and then the last one was Gangnam. So we don't really need to look at the selector. It's done. These are the words, and we're going to be able to get these values inside. We're going to be able to access them here. So I'm going to look for selectors. Selector. So I just created a variable, and I just want to search for that variable we just made. It is now a variable that can be accessed. We've now made a new variable type of enumeration. And then this is our animation selector. I could have called it selector again. I'm trying to differentiate a little bit. So how are we going to use this? We have this conduits, and we want to say this can transition when we're going to choose, and eventually what we'll get to is we'll choose a blueprint, the name, and the name will allow us to transition into here. You have to stick with me because this is kind of a long process, but it will be gratifying in the end. So we're going to get this. Nope, we're going to set this. Oh, we're going to say when the animation selector, when it equals in our enumeration, you see it knows that the ones I just made, and we're in the conduit to Samba. When it equals Samba, we can transition here indeed. So we're just going to do this 3 more times for the other ones, and I'm going to close it to make a little more space. So when when our selector equals, and this one says uppercut, so when it equals uppercut, you can transition into uppercut. And I think you guys can guess how this one's going to go. Oops, I needed the transition out to animation state. So when we're going to skin,
What's the other one?
set would mean if I wanted, so we're getting information that we've already associated in our enumerator. If we wanted to change our enumerator live, we could set it as new values. We could set new text if we wanted to while we're running. But I've already dictated what those names are, so we just care about getting it. We're not worried about altering it live. I actually don't know an instance where I want to do that, but I'm sure we could think of one. We just want to get those words that I wrote. And this could be arbitrary, but we gave a meaningful name so it help us identify that skin equals skin. And then we have one last one. Name them. Oops. Equals. All right. And I'm going to save. We also want to do it for idle. So and I need to add it to my enum. So I'm going to go back in here and add an idle so I can grab that text for idle. And there's idle. Did I want to do that? Yes, because I want to go to idle. Great. So I'm going to make this variable. Look, notice over here on the left, I really don't have that many. I don't have any variables. But once I make this editable and I compile, I now have this value, and I could say if I go to uppercut, I'm supposed to switch to uppercut. Let's see. So we can get to these values, but we can't get back from them. And we're going to quickly just say, yeah, I can go backwards too. Let me be able to come back from these values. These are going to create their own transitions. So for my conduit, I couldn't get too idle. There we go. Boom. So Yes, you can transition back. That's all I have to say is you can transition. It's a Boolean. But I think I'm going to flip that actually. I think this one. We'll see in a second. Yes, you can transition from conduit. So now I'm going to go through all the 4 of those transition backs. Transition back to the, as you see, it gets a little bit unmanageable. So now, yes, it's true, it can come back. It's not set up yet. Now it can come back. It says false, I want to make it true. Now it can come back. And the last one. So let's go ahead and try to see if we can get some of this running. We're having an error. So I did have it right the first time. That's cool. Thank you for the warning. Still have an error.
Are you putting the selector in both colors or both sides?
No, we just want to be able to get to this, but they can always come back to a conduit, which is like this doesn't exist. This is basically instead of having to do every arrow goes to everything has to be connected to all arrows. This is just a placeholder letting you know that anywhere can go to anywhere. It's just a conduit for transition. So I'm only doing it to go out of it.
Mm-hmm.
To go out, this one just says true. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. To go out, to come back. To go out and then come back is true. And then what I'm kind of messing up on is this first one. That's why it's giving me a little error. And I have done this like a cooking show. So I'm gonna bring up the other one and just look at it real quick. Don't cheat. Entry idle. It's true to go to conduit. It's true to go back. Huh. True to go to conduit. I thought I just fixed that. So back to the selector value. Drag. Drag. What in the world is going on? Should delete that one and start from scratch. Okay, so now when this goes here, we've created that, and we can bring in our graph. Yay! Enumerator 2, that's enumerator 1, that's enumerator 0, that's enumerator 1, and it's just not going to do it.
Is it the one that goes on the conduit? And then you have to put
Yeah.
this is from
So we're going to start off in idle, and we can transition. Well, I'm looking at the one I did this weekend, and it starts off with an entry into idle. And then it says it true for going into the conduit. And I'm just following the rules that I made before. and that coming from the conduit to the idle is where I do this selector. So I'll just bring up the other one. And that should be this one. And this is the one that I can't do. Who knows? Does anyone else see that? Did anyone else see that? No. I feel so alone. Technology. Man, like, after this class, I just kind of want to just, like, take nothing but drawing on everything. Just, like... It's like, yeah, but knowing me, like, I have a pencil, a mechanical pencil or something like that, it wouldn't work. All right, so idle. Let's see if this actually compiles. So now we're happy, and let's see if there's still an error, but I don't think it's in here. It's probably up here. Let's close some of these windows. Make sure. What's the error? Something can be changed. Let's make sure we said it was true. Which one was it? True. It totally says true. Entry. Idle. Let's see. Samba. Has something in there. Has something in there. It's got something in there. That one's throbbing for some reason. And so is that one. I'm about to switch over to the other one just real quick. I'll show from there. So the idea is that with this public variable for the selector, I'm able to just switch between them to test them out. Right? So now I'm looking at different animations from over here. And I can just switch through them. But the default transition for going to these animations is actually a variable you could see, is actually alterable. So every one of these ones where I can go to the animation, I'm going to kind of control or command select all of them, and I'm going to go down here. And then there, under the details here, I can see that I can have what kind of blend I want to do, and I could set how long that duration of that transition is. So the default, when you just make the transitions, is 0.1. And when I switch between them, it automatically just jumps. Just a quick, hard transition. But I've kind of found that it's really fun. And it also says it's cubic. So cubic is a ramp, it's a logarithmic thing. So it's a really quick pop. And that doesn't really transition seamlessly between different things. So I found that using a linear transition, with all these selected, I'm doing linear. And then if I do some crazy number like 15 or something like that, and now when I transition, you're going to see that there's a moment where all of them are blended together. And it's a really cool way of like messing around with these animations and combining them and crossfading between them. And you can see the position obviously slides around. Like when it's way back there and I go back to Samba, it's going to go to another position. But that's pretty cool. But what if I don't want to do the whole animation? What if I want to just trigger a face? What if I want to just do legs? What if I want to just do parts of the body? And that's this node right here. It's called Layer Blend by Pose. And And there's a lot of stuff you can do with blending, but we're just going to do this one thing. Layered blend by bone, sorry. Per bone. There we go. So by default, it has a base pose, and this is where your streaming performance will go into. This is the base pose. I don't have this hooked up to the motive, so I'm just going to go into here with idle. So I'll be playing idle by default. Let's go back to idle by default, and I look down here, and I select the object, and it says, and here's the details. Your layer setup. I need to add an element to here, and what do I want to blend by? Well, these are actual bones. These are bone names. And I've been kind of, in a cheap way, I've been just doing it by like the hand bone to make it easy to add these animations just to these hands. But sometimes if you're doing like a lot of intricate work and you like the way they're moving their palms, you might want to actually choose each of the base hand bones. So you'd have 5 here instead of just this one element of bone name. If I go over to my skeleton tab, I can see that my first hand is right here. So I want to do it from hand. Now what I was just saying is like you might find more control if you want to give your performer more control. You can do it from these first numbers of the bones, but I'm going to do it quick and dirty and just go hand. So I know left hand. There we go. Get this selected. I have left hand. And then we want it for both hands. So I'm going to make another one. And this is right hand. I'm going to then put my state machine into here instead. And I'm just going to be adding the state machine animations to the blend poses. And from out of here to my final. And I want this to be 100%. I want it to take over completely the hand poses. So, and this is going to look really funny because this is like the hands for a backflip. Right, this is what it's doing when it's doing the backflip. When it does a samba, it has a lot of like, it has its hand out flat. So
it's just taking, like if you put samba, it's just taking the hands.
Just taking the hands at those bones that I wrote in those bone names, and it's if I did it from here, it would be just the arms. Because I mean, there's not physics. This is just bone-driven animation, so it can override all those kind of collision stuff. So to do a more exaggerated example, so you really get the idea, because this is really fun to play with all this blending of pre-canned animations and whatever. I could say, for instance, left shoulder and right shoulder. So this node right here is left. And this is a way of not only crossfading, but also like taking your favorite parts of certain animations and blending them all together. And this gives you, there's a lot in the animation blueprint, and I haven't done that much with it, but so now we have the arms. It's like it's trying to fight me. Oh yeah, it is. It's a backflip. The punch. And now it's sambaing. All right.
But what if my animation is only the hand without?
Then it's fine. But you're gonna be doing it onto the whole body though. That's why we're trying to get. Yeah. So that's why we're trying to get it into Motion Builder, so you can put on the whole body because you're going to import it onto the skeleton. So, like, if I was open up the Atom project, you'd see that like each different hand pose is a still atom just standing there, and it's just doing this. And those are how we brought in the animations. All right. So we have so that's great. We have that working. And everything's great with that. I can see what time we have. An hour left. I am really going to show you a quick material that I think is kind of fun for post-processing, and it's called 8-bit. and it might be relevant to somebody. So we're going to create another post-processing effect. And what we're going to do is, this is going to be, the final position is going to be, it's going to be on our screen. So we're going to look at screen position. And the data type is going to be of a, is going to be of a, not scene depth, of a scene texture. It's going to be a post-processing texture. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to not get every pixel and lower the resolution and make an 8-bit texture that's scalable. So I'm going to create a parameter for what the resolution is. So this is a, to convert this number to a parameter and give it a name, resolution, and give it a little default value of 128. Great. So this is going to not really show up until we get to the very end. But basically, my screen position is my UVs, my flat UVs on just the screen itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just, I'm going to mask out the blues. I just want the red and greens because those are, wow, really slow. That's as far as I can zoom in. Yeah. I'm going to multiply these by each other. Wait a second. Just go ahead and connect that. I know it's going to end up there. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. So I don't want to have any. I don't want to have any floating point numbers. So I'm going to floor this. Flooring is just takes off, rounds it. So I have just integers. Point. All right. And multiply those to each other. Then I'm going to take this one. I'm going to floor this to also pixelate the UVs. And then to make these scale by each other, I'm going to divide by this floor, throw it in to my UVs. So we're just basically rounding off any floating point. We're just creating a 8-bit texture. So I'm going to save this and close it. And I am going to do this kind of from scratch. I'm going to take a post-processing effect. So in my visual effects, post-processing volume, I'm going to unbound it so it takes over the whole entire screen. I am going to sort of these. I'm going to put in my dancer and go back to post-processing, and I'm going to add in a texture. Under post-processing settings, at the very bottom, we have the miscellaneous, and we're going to put in a blendable. This is a blendable material, and I'm going to search for 8-bit. Oh, actually, what I'm going to do is I want to take an instance of that because I made that scalar parameter. I want to be able to operate in real time. So I made an animation instance, and I'm going to be able to switch that resolution around and drag this as we look at the scene. And you can already see it taking effect. I'm going to do the instance. And then I am going to hit play. Yay! This is kind of what I do in my free time. So we're going to, so this is, am I at the right one? No. So let's bring it up. So you see. Ah, give me back my mouse. Okay. Woo. That was fun. So the one thing I want to mention is that it's like really, really kind of shaky down here. And with using this effect, I'm going to get rid of anti-aliasing so that I'm just letting it be choppy. Okay, get out of there. Thank you. So on these post-processing effects down here, I'm going to take off anti-aliasing. And then also, I don't want to have any reflections. Like that's not something you have in 8-bit stuff. So now it'll look a little bit smoother. And we might take out clean. So it's just quietness. So it's not a true 8-bit effect, but it's definitely like a shader that does that kind of stuff. All right. And so for the last trick in my book today, I'm going to show you how to make those ribbon textures that were on the character, so that we as a class can draw in our motion capture studio in 3D space. So I'm going to create a particle system to do that, and it's going to start off with a material for it. So this is going to be a material for a ribbon particle system. Great. We know that to be able to change alpha and color for ribbon particles, we have to start off with a particle color node. And then we're going to do some stuff to multiply it in there, but I know that I'm going to have 2 multiplies as well. One for the color channel and one for the alpha channel. Whatever. So I'm going to get myself some UVs, which is 2 gradients. It's a red gradient going down and a green gradient going across. I want to mask out the green. I just want the vertical one, so I am going to do a mask. Do a component mask, and when I say get rid of the green, don't use green, you're going to see now, oh, other way around. I'm masking out the green. You see now I have kind of a little gradient here. Move this over, multiply. I'm going to make it a little bit darker because I'm about to add a sine wave to it. So since I wave from 0 from -1 to 1, I want it to be less than that. So let's see, this is going to be 0.5 or something. Sine wave. So now, did I not change that to 0.5? So now we have a double-sided gradient. We're going to make ribbon trails, and this is going to be our material for doing that. When we were making dots and stuff, we were using the radial gradient. This is kind of making a 2-way vertical gradient out of complete shaders with no PNG files. It's the lowest overhead you can get for using a texture on a particle, so you can do the most particles possible. And then I want to be able to scale the ramping. So I'm going to make it a little bit more of a tapered edge. So at this point, it's got a really distinct line there. It goes all the way to black, and it goes all the way to white in the center. And now I'm going to multiply this into my particle colors. And then I want the default to have a little bit of brightness. I always want to be a little bright, so I'm going to go ahead and add an emissive to here. And like 20 is fine for me for right now. Into emissive color. And then I also want to do a little, I want to make it alpha. I want to make the gradient also be visible. when it's in the black area. So I'm going to make this translucent. And go on my opacity. So now we have this little two-sided gradient. And we're going to make a particle system. I think we're over this. Okay. So right-clicking, I'm going to make a particle system. And this is going to be particles ribbons. And we saw particles last week when we made a snow of E's, or was that 2 weeks ago? It all runs together. So these are just little place fillers waiting for us to put in our material. We're going to, first of all, the emitter type is we're looking at this type data. And we've done GPU sprites before. Beams are kind of lines between two objects. Anim trails are things that connect two sockets, two bones. But we're going to do just a ribbon, which is a trail that leads from just one socket. So this is a ribbon trail data. You see it's kind of blurring together now. It's like creating this wonderful like hazy effect. And we go to the required, and it's requiring us to get that ribbon texture. And I made it ribbon P. So now, save. There we go. So now we got the kind of the start of the idea of how we're going to make these trails. I'm going to have to alter the spawn rate and everything, make it a little bit more fluid. But this is a great start. It's already effective and it can already work. We're going to be moving this around with a character. So I want the orientation to be based off of what the character is using. So I'm going to choose local space right here, and then I'm done with the required section of Cascade. We'll move on to spawn. And if I hold down Shift and I click these, I twirl these little arrows, it makes all these visible. I'm going to increase the spawn rate a little bit. The characters will be moving around, and basically a ribbon is a series of particles in a line, and I want to make it a pretty smooth looking line. If you want to make it choppier, you can use less. I'm going to use 50 as a good starting point, and just a few more going out now. Lifetime, this is basically how long that trail is going to be. If you want it to never go away, you can make it a huge lifetime. You can make the lifetime be varying between them all. I'm going to make a pretty uniform one, so I'm just going to do a constant. And I'm going to say all you guys are going to live to be 2 years old. Okay? And the initial size, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So from the min to max, so we have a little variance. I'm going to say 1 for the min, and max I'm going to say 2. And I know this because I've kind of messed around with this, and I know what works in this kind of volume. So let's move on to velocity. Right now it's shooting out pretty rapidly. If I wanted to just draw, I would have no velocity whatsoever. I'm going to put just a little bit of velocity so we can see it moving inside the particle editor. So I'm going to give it a little 10, and now it's coming out slowly. There we go. This is shaping up to be a pretty cool trail. I am not going to use color over life. I'm going to show you guys a little bit more OSC, changing colors and stuff. So I want to make an initial color that I can put as a parameter that we could change on events inside the matinee, key presses. In this case, I'll be doing just a quick toggle in OSC. So no color over life. We're going to do just go to color section, and we're going to do initial color. And the initial color is going to be a parameter name that we can then affect with data inside of our blueprints. And we can give it a meaningful name. This meaningful name for me is P color, which I'll just have to remember later on that I'm going to associate that when I get into the scalar parameters inside of blueprints. I can't see it though, and I really want to be able to see what I'm doing, so I'm just going to go ahead and say always be white until you get overrun with data. So now I can see it again. And the only other thing I want to do is I want to taper it a little bit because it's just like boxy at both ends. So to taper it, I'm going to scale it over life. So going back over to color, I'm going to scale color over life. And I just want to taper it. And I'm going to use this graph down here to be able to taper it. I'm going to create like curves. So we could say it starts off at 0, it comes up to 1, and then it trails off to 0 there. So it's going to be a constant curve, which is already was or wasn't, and curve. Okay. And so we need to add some points to this. Right now, it doesn't know what it is. We're going to say you're going to start off at 0, and we're going to add another point, and you're going to end at 1. But there's a lot of things here, and this is getting confusing quickly. So we're going to quickly move this over to the graph editor. With this selected with scale of color over life, I do the graph editor, and now it's going to be in my graph. I don't really care about the color. I just want to deal with the alpha. So with this selected, with alpha selected, I'm going to make sure it's fitting into my screen. And it's really hard to see, but there's a keyframe right here. You can see when I hover over it that it gives me the text. So this point, alt value, am I in color or am I in? I am in color over life. I'm going to go to alpha. This was a mistake. Alpha over life. We'll do that again. Constant curve with 2 points. From 0 to 1. 1. So now with alpha selected, I can see I have my curve here. And it gives you a little bit of visual feedback that, yes, it is getting darker and then brighter. And this is our alpha scale. I am going to just create this curve here so it tapers in. I'm going to hold down Command, create another keyframe. And then at 1, at the end of life, it's going to also be 0. So it tapers on both sides. But this is arbitrary based off of lifetime. Remember, I made them their last 2 seconds. So if I make them last 100 seconds, it's going to be dark for a long period of that time. So this is a percentage that you need to think about that is tied in directly with lifetime because it is scale over life. This will be a very short amount of time because they're only alive for 2 seconds. I can dial in the numbers a little bit more exactly here. I can say that it's definitely 1. At the end, you're definitely going to be invisible. And you see it would be really confusing to do this all at inside just this text editor. So I like doing it over at the graph, and that was a mistake. And I'm just dialing in exactly after I created them. Yay. So I probably can't see it now because I screwed up the pooch on this one. There we go. So there's a little bit of a taper here at the end. And I'm going to save this. And what I'm going to show you is that we're going to get into the character blueprint. We're going to do a pawn blueprint for the character. And I'm going to show you both how to go into animating, changing animations via blueprints, and also how to do the particles via blueprints. And we'll have it all tied together. So this is, we're going to create that character pawn blueprint, which is how you're going to control all your live performers. Chick dance. Anyway. So let's just create first of all, we're going to create an actor blueprint for our particle system. I'll create a class blueprint. And this is going to be BP ribbons particles. And in the ribbon particles, I want to add in, I'm going to select it, the one I just made, P ribbons, And in the blueprint, now when I go to add a component with it selected, it gives me the suggestion of adding in the ribbons. So yes, this is just a particle system inside of a blueprint. The reason I'm making it a blueprint is because I want to be able to change the color of the start color on events. So I need to save and install the OSC plugin. I already installed OSC plugin. I showed you how to do that last 2 weeks. So the OSC is already installed, and with it installed, I can add an OSC receiver component. And I want to make that an event, so we'll create that event inside of our event graph. So we just want to, so I'm going to send some data over that variable p color. So over the name, so we're going to, OSC is send over names, address spaces. So the name is going to be /p color. And the data we're going to get is we're going to toggle it off and on. So we're going to do just a bool. So we're going to pop off a bool from the data that we have. And then when our condition meets that both we have a bool and it is that color, we're going to trigger a color change. So we're going to do an AND Boolean to say that both of these have to be true to send our conditional. And the conditional is a branch. So when both these conditions are true, we have Boolean change and we're on that address. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to set the scalar, oops, or I might want to look for parameter. We're going to set the color parameter for ribbons. There it is. And what are we going to set it as? We're going to break up this linear color, and we're just going to do 3 random colors. So random color, random float, and range. The range is from 0 to 1. And we're going to duplicate that a couple times by Control-W and Control-W again. So I'm creating a class for a ribbon that changes colors, and it has a random value between 0 and 1 for each of the color channels. Each time we use that class, each class will be generating its own individual random colors. So each ribbon will randomly do its own colors, giving us a little bit more variance really cheaply. And then I have to associate the parameter name. Inside my particle system, we gave the initial color the name p color, and this is where I tie those two things together. And it is case sensitive. So that's fantastic. I'm going to compile. No errors there. Great. So we're moving on. Close some of these things down. What's up? And I'm going to delete this lady. And we're going to create a pawn blueprint to hold her. And what I'm going to show you is basically you can bring in blueprints into as children of other blueprints. So that I'm going to attach to each of her bones a blueprint for each of those ribbons. And that's kind of like the big concept for today is blueprints can be within blueprints, and you can kind of nest them. Instead of trying to make one giant blueprint that had 25 particle systems that each one had its own OSC random number associated with it, the smart way to do it is to make small things you can keep on reusing and make your tools available for you in bits and pieces. So create a blueprint class, and it's going to be a pawn. It's going to be driven by iKinema eventually. And I'm going to call it BP Ribbon Dance. And I'm going to hold down, I'm going to select that female base mesh. and I'm going to be able to add it in there as a skeletal mesh. So now we're rocking and rolling, and I get rid of the default scene root, which it is my root. So we're going to use, we can use an animation blueprint so we can switch between all those animations we had before. So I'm going to bring in our animation, I'm going to bring in the animation blueprint that we made before. I'll use the one that worked instead of the one that didn't work. All right. And now we're going to get to work being able to talk to this animation blueprint. So I'm kind of switching back from, well, actually, let's do the particles first, and we'll keep that kind of part together. So now I'm going to add in a child component. All the way down here at the bottom, it says child actor. I can also just type in child actor in the search bar and find it. Whoa. And then all I have to do is, in the same way that I've been doing before, I have to go here to details, and I have to tell it, first of all, what is that actor class? Well, we called it BP ribbon particles. There it is. And then where's it connected to? Well, I have a wonderful little search bar right here, and I can say it's going to be, let's start at the top, we'll go to head. So it's to the head. I'm going to do this a few more times so that we get the idea, but obviously this would be fun to do for every single socket you possibly can. So we're going to go to, let's do spine, let's do hips, and then select it, BP ribbon particles. And there it is. We'll add a couple more. I tried copying and pasting them before, and it didn't work, so I just have to keep on adding them this way. This one's going to be on the left foot. And it's the particles. And this one's going to be on the right foot. And that'll get us started. We can always add more later if there's time. This gets the whole idea down. Great. Save. For the intents and purposes today, since we're making particles, I'm going to go back to that animation blueprint, and I'm going to switch it to be the whole body, just so we can have the whole body dancing around. So I'm going to bypass that layer blend. We can always come back to it. There we go. Now we got a full dance. And let's go to samba. Nice little blend. As default is back foot. Well, that'll be fine. All right, so we can see that we do have some ribbons coming off already. That's great. It looks like the thing is working. So let's put it in the scene and render it out. So it wants to punch you and give you ribbons. Some mixed messages. And I made a velocity of 10. If I don't want him to move at all, I could go back into that particle parameters, and that initial velocity, I'll just make it 0 now that I can see it in the real world. Save. And I think I have to give it an initial velocity of 1 or something. Let's do that. Did I save anything? Yeah. 10 it is for right now. We'll mess with that later. Where our particles go? Anyway, so now we're going to go into how we're going to select the animation blueprint, and this is like the last bit of show control that would be super helpful. Is how do we change all these different poses? How do we change different animations? Well, we could do it in our blueprint, but we have to connect it to the animation blueprint. So I am going to get a reference to the base mesh. Let me stop first. There we go. And that's why everything was messing up. Now the particles will work. Okay, so that's what it was. I was trying to edit those particles while we were playing, and that's why they went away. But I'm going to go back here to the female base mesh, and what I want to do is I want to get the animation. I want to get an instance of its animation blueprint. So I'm going to say get anim instance. And what is that instance? Well, we have to talk to another blueprint, and the way we talk to other blueprints is we cast them, just like you would cast an actor in a movie. We want to cast this animation blueprint that we made as our thing that has a variable that we want to touch. So I'm going to say cast to, and there I see I have cast to ABP FBM. And now as this, I can get those variables. I can get that enumeration that I made. So I can say set the enumeration. And I backflip. I can duplicate this a few times. And then I need to have 4 different triggers, and I'm going to do this with OSC. So with OSC, I'm going to make an event for it. And I haven't made this in Max yet, so I'll just give it a name I want to send it on eventually. So we're going to call this selector, or whatever we want to, just make sure it has to match up. So / selector. And this is going to be an int. We're going to have 0, 1, 2, 3. We have 4 things that we can switch between. So this is going to be a pop int. And we're going to switch on based off of the int that we sent. So we're going to send the value of the integer into the selection. So we're selecting these, and now we need to send out those pins. We need to execute them. So with this select, I go to defaults. I don't want a default pin on here, and I'm going to add pins. It's going to automatically just give me them in a row. So how do I get that channel in there? I forget this off the top of my head. Anyway. Cool. And there's so we have backflip, samba, Gangnam, and idle. And the target is that animation blueprint. We just go into all those. So on this top level blueprint, what we're doing is we're getting this female base mesh, and we're going to change those animations based off of the different switches. But also, you can see that we have these sub blueprints that we can open up, and each of these has their own OSC that you can change as well, and that is available to us. Let's see. I'm going to actually get a branch to go in here first so that I can make my condition true for the address. So if it is on the channel selector, send out these ints. That was the missing part. Ints. There we go. Yay! Target does have a. Yeah, sure. Oh. Select the base mass. Is fine. I have two projects in here. That's I just got confused. I'm using the wrong variable. Let's go to which variable are you using? You're using hand selector. It would be FBM. Hand selector from as ABM. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to amend this in a second because I want to give us 30 minutes to work in groups. I'll fix this and I'll amend this before I upload it to Slack. But the main thing is that I could change the color of the particles, and we now can attach all these sub blueprints to other things. And I'll just do this by myself and have a great time and celebrate when I get it to work alone in my room. But this is basically, you know how to make a ribbon trail, and you can attach this to a rigid body, and then you can, if without initial velocity, you can draw inside that space. With an infinite lifetime, you can now create 3D trails inside the mocap studio. And I'm just confusing the two different blueprints that I did, and I'll figure it out in a second. I'll post it tonight with the final unveiling. So with that, I'm gonna let